Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another TMDSAS office hour, the last one we have for the month of June. So I want to thank everyone for participating and coming in and joining us on those office hours. And this is just a setting for you guys to ask questions about your application, about the application process. It's just another avenue to have you guys answer your ask your questions and for us to answer those for you guys. We do have your TMDSAS application portal instant message feature where you can reach out to TMDSAS support if you have any questions. But also, office hours is a great place to do so as well. So I'll go ahead and start off with just a side note that we will be having, which I'm really excited about, is this Thursday we will have a special session. It's called Myth Busting Aspects of the Application. And so for this first episode, we have our lovely Dr. Calloway from Long School of Medicine who will be joining us in talking about activities, letting us know any myths that need to be debunked. I know that with the application process and applying to medical school, or just the professions school in general, can be very daunting, can be very scary and confusing at times. So we have, I don't know if you can
Hi,
see
everybody.
him. This is a TMDSCS director, Enrique Hasso. He
Nice
doesn't
to
have
see you all.
headphones, so I don't know if you can hear
I
him.
don't have headphones, but I just wanted to remind you all you're doing a great job. Get your applications in, and we're excited to see them.
Thank you, Enrique. Well, you guys, you'll see Enrique and you'll see Dr. Kellaway on Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. Same place as usual as our office hours, but this will be on Thursday, June 29th. So I don't want you guys to miss that. It's going to be packed with lots and lots of useful information. And I know that you guys certainly ask questions about activities. So if you have questions about those, Thursday session will be a great place to ask those. So if you do have questions in the meantime, I will try my best to answer this for y'all. So go ahead and list any questions that you have in the chat. Go ahead and comment those below. I will get started with just sharing with you all some information about processing times. Now, I know lately we've had a lot of applicants reach out to ask about processing the processing times of their application. And just to let you know, we do not need your letters, we do not need your scores to process your primary application. Those are all separate processes. So even though you don't have your letters ready to submit on your application, that's okay. You can still go ahead and submit your application without any issues on wondering what's going to happen with those letters because those will be processed separately from the application itself. So don't let that stop you from submitting your application because those are not needed at the time of submission. We did have a lot of questions about, lately we've had a lot of issues with the payment section. So once you get ready to submit, we've had a lot of applicants who have questions about not being able to submit their payment. So I did want to let you guys know that we have some insight on the texas.gov website where it has information about payments being declined. So I did want to point that out because I know we've had lots and lots of questions about that. I hope you don't have this issue, but if you do know someone or have a friend who later tells you that they have this instance come up with them, for them, go ahead and share this information below. And I will link it in the chat. Alrighty, so that link is in the chat below. This is it happens with some applicants. Some have had issues with their payment, but it looks like more often than not, the issue is with the information that you input from your credit card. Sometimes that it doesn't, what you put isn't aligned with what's in your bank information, and so this page typically just wants to verify that information, so it may decline it. And so that's typically the issues that we've been seeing with applicants. So if you know someone that might encounter this might encounter this instance, then you have somewhere where you can redirect them if they have any questions. But going back to the processing of the primary application, it does take up to 4 weeks. So right now, our team is currently processing applications submitted on June 1st. That information is displayed on our homepage of the tmdsas.com homepage. So I will list it below. So our website will have the processing times for the primary application, which, like I mentioned, right now our team is currently processing applications submitted on June 1st. We also have processing times for letters of evaluation, such as direct uploads and Interfolio. And just a quick reminder that direct upload is the quickest method that can take up to 10 business days, whereas Interfolio, it can take up to 14 business days to process those letters. So all that information is listed in that blue box on our homepage on that website that I just listed below. So that way you can keep track and see when you can anticipate to hear back on when your application has been processed and sent to the schools. And that's all that I have on processing. So I'll go ahead and start with answering those questions. And like I said, if you haven't listed it below, go ahead and do so. Hi, thank you for your time. I received my master's degree from a foreign institution. The grading system is completely different from the US. Is it fine that I enter the grades as satisfactory? Yes, that's an option. Let me go to the coursework page because I know we have some guidance on entering those grades if they're not like letter grades like we have here in the US. So let me pull that up really quick. So you have a couple options. You can list as for satisfactory. If it's pass, you can also use that as well. I know sometimes we have situations where it's a narrative evaluation, so you can definitely enter pass in those as well. It sounds like that would be the best option for you since it's not the same as a letter grade at JJ. So I think that should be fine. Okay. For planned activities, are the descriptions supposed to be written differently, even if they would be the same? Great question. I think I've mentioned that it's best to list it however you think would be best. It's ultimately up to the applicant to make that determination. If you think it makes sense to just have the same description for that entry that you'll have multiple times. But in instance of the planned activity, for that you may want to see if you can make that a little different, maybe what you hope to do in the future. But in order to get a much more firm answer, I recommend that you attend our Thursday session with Dr. Kellaway because she will be addressing all activity questions. She will give us a lot of insight as to what they're looking for, how to stand out in that section so you know exactly what to write, what to include, what not to include. And instructions like this would be whether or not you need to have the same description or not, I think would be a great question to bring to Dr. Calloway and have her answer it directly to you. So for now, all I can say is our standard piece of advice in activities is just to have you know that it's ultimately up to you to determine what the best way to go about that and entering your activities. I know it's maybe not the best answer, but we're not advisors either. So unfortunately, that's all I really can let you know. But great question. I hope that you attend Thursday's session, but if not, I can definitely keep a note so that way we make sure that Dr. Calloway gets this question. Alrighty, so this is about processing. I read the application may take 2 to 4 weeks to process, but my application has been in process for more than a month. Is this normal? So I would see if you can send a message in your portal, actually, Crystal, just so that way we can have a team member take a look at that. Um, I would say process is typically about 4 weeks, so it's about a month out to process applications. Sometimes there can be delays, just depending if, for example, you are requested to submit a residency document or anything else that maybe you might have entered incorrectly in your application, such as coursework. Um, so it could be a variety of things why it might appear to be like a delay on the application itself. But just to get more clarification on your specific case, I recommend that you send a message in the portal. but the typical is about 4 weeks, which is about a month. And follow up from Crystal. I am concerned about how late my application will arrive to the schools. Yeah, that's a great point. That's definitely an area of concern that we have seen with applicants year after year. It's normal to um, be concerned about how the schools will receive your application, when that'll happen, when you will receive secondaries and get the ball rolling in that manner. What I would say is that on the TMDSAS side, it could take up to 4 weeks to process your application. Again, you don't need to have the letters, you don't need to have the scores submitted to submit your primary application. The way that we like to think about it is you want to submit your application when you know you're ready, that you will have a quality application, you have everything you want to include. Make sure that you look over it twice, 3 times if needed. There are certain sections that cannot be changed after you submit, so you want to make sure that everything that you have in there is what you want, and it reflects the the presentation of the information that you want to include and present to the schools in the way that you want it. So once you submit that application, it could take up to 4 weeks to process. That means it'll still be at the TMDSA's office processing before it gets sent out to the schools. During that 4 week process window period, we encourage applicants to take that opportunity to make sure your scores are released if you haven't already released them to TMDSAS. Make sure that your letters of evaluation are submitted on your behalf, just so that during that 4 week period, you have time to get all that situated, get it all submitted to TMDSAS so that by the time that your application reaches that 4 week mark and it gets ready to be sent out to the schools, your letters get attached, your scores get attached. So by the time that it arrives at the school's end, then they already have a completed application on their end. And that's just a way for you to not hold back. The reason why we do that is so you don't hold back on submitting your application if you're missing a component, because that'll could essentially push back your submission date. And I know that submitting early is optimal in the process of submitting your application. So, Crystal, yeah, since you already had that previous question about not sure why there was a delay on your application or seeing how much longer to process, yeah, definitely send a message if you haven't already, so we can have a team member take a look at that and see if there's anything else that you might be missing. Double check your messages as well. I know sometimes it's easy to forget that you have a messaging system in your portal, and this is the TMDSAS application portal. So this is where you work on your application. In that portal, you do have a messaging system, and it'll have an inbox for you at the top right hand corner of the page. It'll have an inbox for you, and sometimes important information does get sent in that box. So just make sure to check it, make sure that you're keeping an eye out for it to make sure that you're not missing out on any important information that may be needed of you in order to process the application. Okay. This question is about coursework. I did not take a statistics. I did take multiple courses such as computational physics that covered stats. Would it be possible to list one of these courses as a stats course area in the TMDSA's app? Certainly. So you are not going to be penalized if these course areas are listed incorrectly on your end. We just ask that applicants just use the information that it is provided on the application guide. And let me just link that below so you have that as a reference. And so this link will take you to the specific section of the coursework page in the application guide, where it gives you a breakdown of the different topics that must be included in a course to count as a certain prereq. So just use this. This is the same thing that our team is using to review courses to make sure everything is entered accurately. So just use this as a guidance to help you code or select the proper course area that you think is appropriate to your course based on the information provided here. And just use that to do the best that you can do to enter that course area. again, you're not going to be penalized if it's changed later on in processing to make sure it is listed accurately. Just do your best. You won't be penalized. If you think that this is a statistics course, you can certainly code it as that. Whenever your application gets processed and sent out to the schools, you will have access to the PCR. This is a prerequisite coursework report. So this page document becomes available to you once an application has been transmitted. This document specifically has all your course prerequisite course areas, all the courses that count towards those prerequisite areas, and it'll ultimately show you if you have any deficiency in any hours of those prerequisites. Don't be alarmed, don't be scared or frightened. If you see any deficiencies, it's going to be okay. You will not be kicked out for not having a completed prereq area. So if you code this as a statistics course, once your application is processed, you have access to that PCR. Once it gets transmitted and you see that the course is not listed under statistics, you can always submit a course appeal and then go from there. And our team is more than happy to help you with that process and be able to point you in that direction if that time does come. So go ahead and do your best right now. If you feel like that's statistics based on the topics that must be covered in a course that are listed on this page that I linked below, then go ahead and list it as statistics. And again, if it changes later on, you can always submit a course appeal. And I know that a follow up with that is typically, well, how are the schools going to view my deficiencies? Well, they will not toss out your application if that's what you're thinking. They often deficiencies are actually very common. So if you think about it, a traditional applicant applying at the end of their junior year, going into their senior year, still has a lot of courses to take in their senior year. So when they submit their application, there will be deficiencies. Most likely, since you still have courses to take, you still have to input those final grades for the PCR to generate. Those final grades and calculate them into your PCR. So, more often than not, deficiencies are actually very common. So, don't be alarmed. It's not too scary as long as you catch those on early in the cycle and not before you're about to matriculate into these schools. We do have a couple applicants from EY23 that lets us know, hey, I can't sign up for classes because I have this deficiency. Where did that come from? And it actually been available to them a very long time. So avoid that mistake and look at your PCR as soon as it becomes available to you. And enough about my soap opera box. On to another question. We have a question about high school. So for hobbies done since high school and before, would we put the start date after high school graduation? For example, if I graduated in May 2020, would I start on June 2020? I believe this is for the section for activities. So let me just get to that page really quick. Unless you're a veterinary applicant, you are an exception to this rule, but dental, medical, and podiatry applicants will have to enter activities since you graduated from high school or received your high school diploma. If you're a veterinary applicant, you can enter your activities prior to graduating from high school. So only exception to that rule. So let me just take a look at this question again. For hobbies done in high school and before, would we put the start date after high school graduation? So you were correct. If you are a dental, medical, or podiatry applicant, your activities must have the beginning start date as of your graduate high school graduation date, and you can only include activities from that point on forward. The only exception is for veterinary applicants. They're the only ones that can include activities before high school graduation. James, I said a lot, so let me know if that made sense and if you need me to clarify any of that. Great questions, you guys. If you haven't already asked your question, entered into the chat, we'll be here as long as we need to make sure you get your questions answered. So just go ahead and enlist any if you have any questions down below. Alrighty. So with time passes, TMDSAS takes longer to review the upcoming applications. I think what you're asking, well, as time passes, will we take longer to process the upcoming applications? The answer is all applications are processed within that 4-week window. We've had some times where we had lots and lots of applications submitted, especially in June, is when we typically get the bulk of the applications submitted. And it may push back a little bit on our fourth week turnaround time for those processing times on applications. But typically, our team has been very consistent of maintaining that 4 week processing time period window. If you recently submitted your application will be reviewed or processed with the rest of the applications that were submitted on your submission date. So just be mindful of when you submit your application because that's the date that you will want to be looking out for in the tmdcs.com homepage. Like I mentioned earlier, and I linked it below in the chat, we do have our processing times for applications and for letters of evaluation on our tmdcs.com homepage website. So you can use that to monitor what day our team is currently processing applications. So on today's date, they are processing applications submitted on June 1st. So if you recently submitted your application, I would say calculate what 4 weeks from your submission date would be to give you an idea when you can anticipate that your application will be processed. Our data is constantly being updated daily on our website, so that will give you a good indication of what day processing is currently for a specific submission date. So just be on the lookout for that, and just I know sometimes it can be just nerve-wracking knowing that it's taking some time, but just trust that, like you, there's many, many more applicants. I would say typically in a year we get about 9,000 applications, and so we want to be equitable in making sure that everyone's application is processed in a timely manner. So we do have a lot of applications that need to be processed. So on your submission date, we probably had hundreds and hundreds of applicants submit their applications. So just be patient. I know it can be nerve-wracking, but just be constantly looking at that monitor the website as that will have the most updated dates. All right, let's see. All right, so we have a question from Rihanna. I started school in 2014 and plan to apply next year. Will my courses taken in 2014 still be valid? So for TMDSAS, yes, of course. We've actually seen coursework dated back since the 1970s. So it's fine. We've are accustomed to seeing coursework that was taken a long time ago. And it's usually something that we see common with our non-traditional applicants. What I will say is, like on the TMDSA side, we'll see that coursework will still make sure that it's entered correctly in your application, coded appropriately, and it'll be available to the schools for them to see. What we recommend is that you get in touch with the schools that you're interested in applying to. Just reach out to them to see if they happen to have any kind of expiration dates on their coursework. I not sure. I don't have any schools at the top of my head that do have an expiration date on their courses. So that's why we always just recommend that you reach out to the schools to see if that's applicable. If not, it sounds like you should be fine. 2014 is actually not that long ago. Well, it's about 9 years, so that's fine. It's typically what we see in the application. And like I mentioned, we've seen coursework since the 70s, so I think you should be fine. But just to double check, you can always confirm with the schools. And I hope that answers your question. Alrighty, let's see. Thank you. That is reassuring to hear. Thanks again for your help and time. Yeah, of course, no problem. I know that this time can be very scary, so we definitely want to make sure that we have an opportunity for you guys to ask questions, for us to answer, and to provide as much as reassurance as possible. And again, this is also another question that you can even bring to Dr. Calloway in our session on Thursday, this Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Time. You can ask this question, ask about how they view applications on their end, um, any kind of questions that you have, you can definitely bring them to Dr. Kellaway from the Long School of Medicine. She will be addressing questions about activities, but she can certainly address any other concerns that you have about applying, the processing times, how they review applications on their end, how they mark those applications complete on their end, coursework, all of these questions. You can also certainly bring those to that session on Thursday. So don't miss out. If you can't make it, that's okay. That recording will be available after the session ends on our YouTube channel. All right, let's see. So Christopher's follow-up is I'm submitting my application July 29th. Thanks. Okay, yeah, certainly. So you can always keep an eye out for that processing times that are listed on our website to kind of get an idea of when your July 29th processing date will arrive. Well, that's all the questions that I see here in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us and asking all these great questions. I'm sure that it helped address other people's questions as well. Um, I'll go ahead and remind y'all and leave this in the chat. Thursday, June 29th at 12 p.m. So it's a little different than our normal times for office hours since this is a special session with Dr. Calloway. Alrighty, and just a quick note, just because I want to make sure you all are able to attend, and if you're not able to, let your friends know, let other fellow applicants know about this session. We will also be promoting this on our social media, on our website. You don't want to miss this. Like I said, this is every week we try to give you as much as information as possible. But what better way than to hear it from an actual person at the schools that you're interested in applying to? Again, don't miss this Thursday session on June 29th at 12 p.m. Central Time. We'll have Dr. Calloway from the Long School of Medicine join us to answer questions about activities, debunk a couple of myths that we've been hearing that I'm sure y'all are familiar with, answering questions about the process of applying, application review on their end, anything that comes to mind. Certainly bring those questions to this session. It's a great opportunity to hear back from the schools. So thank you all for joining, and I will see you guys. We'll actually start our next July office hour sessions on Tuesday, July 11th, since we are out for the holidays next week. Have a great week, everyone, and I hope you guys have a great holiday weekend as well, and good luck on the rest of the application season. Bye, everyone.